Now to discuss is Republican Governor Larry Hogan of Maryland. Thank you so much for being here. It's nice to see you in person.
It's great to be with you.
This was the 11th straight month that the U.S. added more than 400,000 jobs. In February, it was high, and on Friday, unemployment dropped to its lowest level since before the pandemic. So we know that inflation is still a problem. But given what we're seeing with these numbers, does President Biden deserve some credit for getting the economy in a much better place?
Well, look, I think it's really encouraging news to see the job growth. And we've been experiencing the same thing in our state and have been for, I think, more than 11 months, record job growth, which is terrific for the economy. However, it really doesn't change the pain that people are feeling. The average person is feeling due to inflation, as you mentioned, with higher gas prices and higher price of groceries and everything that they buy. So there are people who already have jobs, and it's great for the people that just got hired, but people are still struggling. Families are having a difficult time meeting with these higher prices, and my concern is that we've got to try to do something about it, which is why we were the first state in the nation to pause the gas tax to save people a little money at the pump, and we just signed into law $2 billion in tax cuts to let people, especially retired people and people on fixed incomes and lower incomes, to keep more of their own money in their own pockets to pay for the higher prices.
So you mentioned that Maryland, you signed legislation putting a pause on the gas tax for 30 days. 6 Democratic governors are pushing Congress to do that on a federal level, which would shave off about 18 cents per gallon for Americans. Do you support that?
I do, and we've been pushing for that, along with also just increasing domestic production. And I thought it was a good step when the Biden administration tapped the oil reserves, which will help bring those prices down. But I think pausing the federal gas tax is a good idea.
Let's talk a little politics, especially about what's going on in your state of Maryland. The Democrats passed a new congressional map this week after a court ruled that the one that they had initially was, quote, extreme partisan gerrymandering. You vetoed their first proposed map. Do you intend to veto this one as well?
Well, first of all, it was a huge win for democracy and free and fair elections. And gerrymandering is, I think, a cancer on our politics, and it's bad no matter which party does it. Obviously, there were a number of Republican states where judges threw out maps. This is the first time in the country that a Democratic map was thrown out. And, we've have the unfortunate distinction of having some of the worst gerrymandering in America. I'm actually the first Republican to ever be involved since 1790. It's always been the Democrats completely drawing the maps. And
so will you veto it?
So I vetoed the first map. Yeah. They're threatening to appeal. They drew a new map, but kind of said, we don't really want to live with it. We want to go back to the old gerrymander map. So I'm going to try to convince them to drop the appeal, and then maybe we can move forward.
Got it. There was a ruling this week granting the January 6th committee access to more emails. And when that ruling came down, a federal judge wrote this, quote, based on the evidence, the court finds it more likely than not that President Trump corruptly attempted to obstruct the joint session of Congress on January 6, 2021. He's effectively saying that the former president committed a federal crime. Do you agree?
Well, I don't know because I haven't seen all the evidence whether he committed a crime, but I did see the ruling, and that was a major impact by that judge saying that there's a likelihood that a felony was committed. We're trying to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. I'm concerned about the missing phone calls and tapes, but there's no question, as I've been saying for a while, that he was involved in stirring up the insurrection on January 6th. But I don't have enough information to make a legal determination.
Talk about stirring up. I have to ask you about the former president saying this week that, quote, as long as Putin is not exactly a fan of our country, that he should do whatever he can to dig up dirt on Joe Biden.
I mean, it's just more of the same. It doesn't surprise me that Trump would make that statement, but it's about the worst possible thing you can do when all these atrocities are taking place in Ukraine, and Putin's aggression is what the focus is for a former president to try to drag politics into that is just completely unacceptable.
Your fellow Republican governor, DeSantis in Florida, he suggested that he will retaliate against Disney after it criticized Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which bans certain instruction about sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom. What's your reaction to that? And then more broadly, what do you make of that legislation?
Well, I didn't
say.
really actually see the details of the legislation, but the whole thing seems like just a crazy fight. I'm not sure. It concerns me that DeSantis is always talking about. He was not demanding that businesses do things, but he was, telling the cruise lines what they had to do. He was telling local schools what they had, mandating, and now he wants to criticize Disney for expressing, how they feel about that bill. I mean, they have every right to it. We have a thing called freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
They can come out and say what they think. I think the bill was kind of absurd and not something that would have happened in our state.
So you alluded to this earlier. You are a Republican governor in a blue state. 7 months from now, voters are going to go to the polls for the midterm elections. What should, in 30 seconds, if you were on the ballot as a Republican running for Congress, what should the message be?
I think we have to have a more hopeful, positive vision for America, and we have to look to the future as opposed to trying to relitigate the past and trying to talk about crazy conspiracy theories. I mean, I think the Republicans, instead of just that negative message against the Democrats, I think we got to have a message about what we're going to do to try to help solve problems.
Thank you so much, Governor Larry Hogan. Thanks for your time, and thanks for coming in.